Hey, and welcome back to week 11. This week, we're going to start talking about growing your business, and we're going to start by talking about delegation. When should you start delegating? Now, maybe you're thinking, well, maybe I'm too small at the moment to delegate, and maybe it's still not the right time, but I can tell you that I was waiting way too long before I started to delegate. So in this video, I want to start explaining how you should think about this. First of all, let's acknowledge that you can't do it all and grow yourself. Now, I know that most of you, if you're anything like me, you went out to freelancing because you wanted your independent, right? You wanted to not have to wait and be dependent on other people. You wanted to do things yourself. And as part of that, it's really hard for us to let other people do things because we feel like we need to be in control. We don't have to, agree or disagree with other people about how to do things. That's why we went to freelance. However, if we were going to keep all the control ourselves, we're never going to be able to focus and grow just because there's not enough time to do everything yourself. So these are some key factors that you should consider, that if these are happening, maybe you should start delegating. Now, I'm saying here you should consider. If these things happen, does not mean you have to delegate. We'll talk about how to get to this conclusion. So first of all, if somebody else can do something that you're doing right now for cheaper, it might be an indication that it's time to start delegating, because then you'll be able to let other people do it and still have extra profit. And the other thing is, if you want to stop doing something, if there's something that you're doing that you currently hate doing or you're not really good at doing, maybe it's time to consider delegation. For me personally, that first thing that I delegated was finance, keeping track of expenses, revenue, all of these spreadsheets. So I was doing that, but I was hating that, and I didn't want to do that. And that was when I saw that I'm spending a lot of hours every week doing something that I really, really don't enjoy doing. That kind of put on the light bulb under, hey, maybe I should start delegating these things. So how do we know, right? How do we know if somebody else can do this something cheaper? Well, it's actually pretty easy to calculate this. So let's start with some assumptions, and then you can start doing this on your own business to understand. Let's assume that you make, or I make, $6,000 every month. And let's assume I'm working 40 hours every month. Well, if we'll take 6,000 and we'll divide them by 40, that basically means that effectively every hour that I'm working on my business is generating $150, right? It's worth. That's my effectively hourly rate. Okay, no matter what I'm doing, that's costing the business $150. So assuming that you're tracking every hour in your business, just like I showed you on the week when we talked about time tracking, then here's an example of how my week might look like. So there's 3 hours on strategy, 15 hours on design, and so forth. And if we're going to calculate, we're going to multiply each hour at 150, we can actually see what is the cost of each one of these tasks for our business. Now, when we're looking at the cost, now it's actually pretty easy to ask ourselves, hey, can I pay less than, let's say, $1,800 for someone else to do my marketing and get the same results that I'm getting today? If I can do that, maybe that's something that I need to delegate. Can I pay less than $600 for somebody to track my finances or something like this? So for me personally, one of the things that I saw that I can start delegating is for example, some parts of my design. Okay, so I figured out that while I'm very good at the heavy lifting and coming up with the concepts of design, designing page number 5 and the footer and all these little design details is something that I can actually find somebody else to do that for maybe $30 an hour, and they would do this actually better than me because they have more patience, because I'm kind of like getting bored very fast. I want to work on the concepts, I want to work on the strategy, but so I don't actually have the patience to set everything up on the grid and make it pixel perfect. So by delegating some of that design work to somebody else who can do that for actually a lower rate, I was able to scale how much effort and work I can do for my clients. So here are some questions to ask yourself after you do this calculation. First of all, ask yourself, what are your core strengths, right? Because these are the things that at the end of the day you like doing, right? And they provide most of the value for your clients. Now, you do this by developing self-awareness, right? But also by talking with your clients, as much as like we did on week number 2, when you asked them what was the best thing about working with you. When you do that, when you'll do this over and over again, you'll start understanding what people like about working with you and what provides most of the value for your clients. For me, for example, it was part of the strategy and managing the client relationships. And that's actually a lot of what I love doing. So I wanted to keep doing that, while some of the other things, like I've mentioned, designing the footer on page number 5, that's not really relevant. And that's not really the key impact for my business, not for my clients and not for myself, as well as, managing my finance, for example. So that goes along with the question of what do I want to keep doing? So for myself, I wanted to keep doing the design and development of the website that I built, just because I was passionate about this. And at the end of the day, even maybe I could have found somebody else to do the Webflow development for the website that I did cheaper than what I did. But at the end of the day, I'm building this business for me to keep doing what I love doing. So it's not all about optimizing and making more money, because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, and that's, I think, the question that's going to come up: what do you like doing more? For example, building your websites in Webflow or versus managing other people. And for me, it was doing the design and building is something that I wanted to keep on doing. What do I want to stop doing? So we talked about this. I've mentioned, for me personally, I didn't want to keep track of doing the finances anymore. I didn't want to do the admin work. So those were kind of the first things that I wanted to stop doing and delegate to other people. And the last question, as I just mentioned, will you actually like hiring and managing other people more than what you're doing right now? Okay, and this is a really important question, because maybe you don't like doing finances, but perhaps you won't like hiring and managing other people even worse than that. Now, you probably don't know this. If you haven't hired or delegated something, you probably don't know this. So you need to experiment. But at the end of the day, it's not delegate at all costs. I'll say this again. This is your business. You're trying to build here a business that you love and that you'll enjoy going to every day. So you'll need to understand, what do you like doing, what do you don't like doing, and balance them. So a few warnings, right? The fact that you can, or that it might make sense to delegate, doesn't mean that you have to, okay? And the fact that we're calling this program the Six-Figure Freelance Designer, and the fact that, you don't have to do whatever it takes to grow your business and reach $100,000 or $200,000. You need to find out the sweet spot for you. And of course, your ambitions needs to be in alignment with what you're doing. But if you find out that you really, really don't like delegating, or you don't like managing other people, you don't have to do this, right? And you can still reach a very great business even without doing this. So you just need to realize if you actually want to do this. If you want to grow, then as I said at the beginning of this video, you can't do it all yourself. You'll have to start building a team and delegating some of that work. But you might not want to keep growing forever. Finding that sweet spot is something really, really important, and being comfortable with your own goals and ambitions, and to understand what it takes to reach them. So just think about, if you'll start delegating, will this make your life better? Maybe you'll make more money. Maybe you'll stop doing things that you don't like doing. So yes, that might make your life better. But maybe it will make your life a hassle, right? Then you have to deal with other people, and maybe you don't enjoy this. So just experiment and try to figure out and answer this question: is this making your life better? Now, what can happen is you'll start hiring other people, right? And then you've actually slipping into an agency mode where you have a team, and now you have to feed this beast by taking on project that you don't really like, just so that you can keep paying for the people that you hired. And this is something that happened to a lot of people. They actually turned into an agency that is growing and growing and growing without intentionally wanting to go there. So I encourage you to, again, think about what you want, where your goals are, and then be intentional about where you're going with delegation, with team building, and all of that. And as you'll start hiring and delegating other people, you'll make more money, but you'll understand that your margins are actually decreasing, right? Because not everything, as a freelancer, most of what you make, most of your revenue is actually, profit, right? You don't have that many expenses besides, your salary. But once you'll start paying other people, the revenue, the top number, is not going to be what you actually take home. Okay, so a lot of people might be like, yes, I'm making six figures, but they're getting a very, very low salary because most of those six figures are going into expenses, team members, and so forth. This is not your goal. So remember when we had the week about finance, remember how you need to set your profit margins, where you want them to be. And again, you're not just trying to make a lot of money for the sake of making money. You're trying to increase the percentage of that money that gets to you, right? The last point about delegation is something that I discovered that is called delusional delegation. And when I heard that phrase, delusional delegation, I was like, oh yes, that's exactly what happened to me. And by delusional delegation, basically that means that you think you can hire somebody that can magically solve all your problems. Like a lot of times that might be around something like marketing. I hate getting clients and dealing with all the marketing stuff. So let me just hire somebody or pay somebody, maybe an agency or maybe a freelancer, and they'll get me the leads, they'll get me the clients, and I can just keep doing what I like doing, which is the design. But at the end of the day, if they are not in line with you, and if the process of how the work is going to get done is not very, very explicitly explained, if it sounds too good to be true, then a lot of times it's delusional, right? You can't really just hire somebody to solve all your business problems. Okay, we'll talk soon about how to actually hire and set the brief for the people that you work with. But if it sounds too good to be true, if you think that bringing on one person or an agency can solve all of your problem, that might be delusional. And I've made that mistake multiple times when trying to hire people that I thought are going to solve all my problems, specifically around marketing agency. Oh, they're going to run ads for me, or they're going to do this and that and solve all my problem, and we can scale, and we can make a lot of money super fast. Turned out to be a delusion. So be very, very careful of that. Now let's talk about how to actually delegate.